Joining me now for more on this is David Olsson, National President with the Australia-China Business Council. Thanks for your time. Look, we're always waiting for exact confirmation. It's one of those governments you have to read the tea leaves on, but it seems pretty positive. What's your reaction to this news?
Oh, indeed, it's very positive. In fact, in your introduction, you mentioned the forthcoming visit, but in fact, the Vice Minister for Foreign Affairs, Ma Xiaoyu, is actually in Australia now. He arrived yesterday afternoon. At the ACBC, we received him and held a small dinner with a number of industry and business leaders. And right now, I think he's in Canberra talking with various government department heads.
What can you tell us then about what he had to say, I guess at least in a broad sense? Did it feel positive? Did it feel like things have changed?
Yep, no, it was very positive indeed. It was a very crystal clear message. You know, China is willing to move ahead. Wants to move ahead in re-establishing and resettling and normalising our bilateral relationship. So that message was that received loud and clear. Vice Minister, spoke at length around what's happening within China at the moment. He talked about China's modernisation process that's underway, the high growth strategy policies that are underway right now, and shared with us just some of the things that might mean for the rest of the world, including Australia. So we took from it a very positive intent to move ahead. It is, of course, part of a sequence of activities that started last year on the skirts of G20 with Prime Minister Albanese and President Xi talking to each other and agreeing that we need to take the relationship forward somehow. So we've had Foreign Minister, Trade Minister, Ministers meeting, diplomatic activities been rife, WTO negotiations have been underway, and now we have this important meeting.
Always interesting to think why. There's always a reason for why and timing for the Chinese government. Did you get a sense? Was there any talk of the TPP? It's been renamed though, but this big trade deal that China actually wants a part of, because if it wants to be a part of that, it's got to be playing by trade rules, and it hasn't been in the past. Perhaps it wants to look like it's playing ball now.
That's right. Well, I think if you look at the overall context, the world has changed significantly for China, as for us. So what's happening with us and our relationship is that China's trying to normalise this. It's got hundreds of relationships around the world that it's got to normalise. The US relationship is this pivotal relationship. That's a fraught one at the moment, but it feels that it can actually do something with us and is keen to do it. But in relation to your point around CPTPP, the Vice Minister did actually mention that this is something that China would like Australia to support and progress. Obviously, as you pointed out, Australia's position is how can we accept China into this important, high-level, very strategic regional agreement, the world's largest, if it's not abiding by the rules of the moment. The response to that from the Vice Minister was, we are trying to address that right now. We want to negotiate a way through this, and we think there is a future.
Would you understand the Australian government's reluctance though? Because yes, China looks like it's returning to the fold on trade rules, but it's doing so just before trying to join this big trade deal. It clearly for many years hasn't, and doesn't the fact that they're now relenting on this dispute, we think, just prove that the various reasons given for import bans or tariffs and so on was spurious?
I think what it shows is that there is a genuine intent now by China to address the issues that we've found so troubling. It knows that if it wants to get Australia's support as a member of CPTPP to its admission, it's got to address that quite squarely up front. And we've made it very clear from the Australian business perspective as well as the government perspective that the resolution of those issues is a prerequisite to going forward. As you say, how can we work with a nation if it's flaunting, what are the standards of that agreement? China's response is, we will address that. We're starting that process now. There's no expectation, there's no time frame around the CPTPP's processes, but I think both sides now want to move ahead as rapidly as possible to resolve all outstanding issues so that we can clear all the baggage and move forward.
Yeah, and that would be good, but I guess the final question on this is, would you understand businesses, sectors, whatever it might be, being reluctant to rush back into this? Nobody wants over-concentration in terms of China as a trading partner, because it's hard to see it as reliable for the sort of, short, medium, long term.
So the Australia-China Business Council represents, well over 500 or 600 Australian companies that are actively involved in trade with China. And that's about 18,000 people all up who are dealing on a daily basis. I can't speak for all of those, but what I do know is that Australian business broadly sees huge opportunity in the China market. We've got some issues that we need to address. We've got to clear that if we're going to start to rebuild trust. But the opportunities exist. The challenge now for Australian business is how to capitalise on those opportunities. It's a question of understanding what the new China is about. That's why it was important for us to have this conversation last night. To continue to invest in understanding what China's strategies are, and then putting in place the risk mitigation strategies, which are normal business strategies, to manage new and changing risks in what is a globally unsettled